Hey, Crawford, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Reddy?
Excellent. Thank you for joining us from Vegas.
Now here I am, up all night at the craps table. Had a great time.
There you go. No,
Out here with
he's
out here
joking
listening with
for
the
anybody
Google
who wants.
Cloud team.
What's that?
Out here with the Google Cloud team for
Awesome.
their annual event.
Massive, huge group there for sure. So anyway, everybody, welcome to episode number 197 of Tech Sales Insights. Really excited to have a longtime friend, Crawford Prete, who's president at IDC. Our title topic is IT trends for 2025. Where's the market headed? What every seller should know. So definitely will be very insightful. As always, brought to you by Sales Community. So for those that are members, thank you. Crawford's also on our advisory board. So Crawford, thank you for that. And if you're not a member, Tucker can throw up a free membership link. Feel free to join. Lots of great content and executives on it for sure. And also sponsored by Zoom Info, who's the go-to-market platform sponsor of Sales Community. Most people know them for being the best in, I'll just call it contact data. So if you want to slice and dice who's who in the zoo to go after and sell to and all that, that's kind of the best of what they do for that. But then have come up with some other amazing offerings for account-based marketing. So to figure out who's going to your website, how do you target them, and do a lot of specific marketing things around that area. And then a third area being Copilot. Everybody has a Copilot these days, but just an amazing AI-based selling tool where, if all of a sudden Crawford gets told he's got to be on a sales call in 2 minutes, he can go in and say, hey, tell me about the account, where we're at, what's going on, what's the good and the bad, who's this person, what's the hire, so any kind of structured information like that to be able to pull off the CRM as well as just kind of outside data and a lot of other great things, but just fantastic company there. And by way of introduction, so Crawford lives in Wellesley, so get to see him over at the club once in a while. Avid sports fan, but you grew up actually a New York Giants season ticket holder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and ended up making the switch to the Pats once they hired my old friend Bill Parcells and upskilled their coaching staff, and it was best fan decision I ever made.
There you go. Absolutely. We got some of the Super Bowl hardware behind here by chance.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
And also Michigan State kind of breaking your heart, huh?
Always. Yeah, the Spartans are killing me. Yeah. Well, you know what though? It was nice to see them make a little bit of a run at it until they got into they hit the Ole Miss, not Ole Miss, the chopper blades there in the Sweet 16. But it was fun.
Yeah, great. Yeah, exciting this year for sure. So we're trying to figure out how we met. So we think it was when you started at IDC, which was in '89. So probably both of us had a lot of hair. So 36 years ago. And then over the years at some of my the bigger technology stints that I had at EMC, Storage Tech, Sun, and then at HP. We did a lot there, and firsthand experiences. Crawford, very kind of sincere, genuine, authentic, crazy smart, knows everything about everything. It's just amazing as technology evolves. What's happened, what's happening now, what's going to happen. So I know there's going to be some amazing insights here, and probably your best sales call was with Jessica, I must say. So good job there, and great family for sure. So by way of introduction, I've got some mutual friends. So from Patrick Osborne, who's at HPE, says, Crawford is recognized around the world as a top analyst in the IT industry and someone I've partnered with to gain insight on trends that shape the strategy of the top tech companies. He's an invaluable business partner who always brings humility, insight, and an opinionated view of the market based on customer reality. Crawford never forgets his roots, and I love that he remains a tireless champion of the Boston tech scene, one of the great guys in our industry. So
very special.
Pretty good there. And from Dave Valente, who was a partner in crime years ago, and
absolutely
now different companies, says, I can't say enough great things about Craw. When we were at IDC together, we came up with a plan to take out DataQuest, and it started in storage, a tall order for an East Coast company to go compete in a predominantly West Coast business. This is a world you know well, Randy. We were a grinder culture at IDC and flew a lot of red eyes. We'd go to California and stay at the Fairmont in San Jose. So we were closer to Scotts Valley to see Al Schuchart at Seagate. Al loved Crawford because he was smart, knowledgeable, and funny. Then we'd spend time in Milpitas at Quantum with Mike Brown, and then go to San Jose at Maxtor to go see George Scalise. We'd peddle our insights and data at Connor to Finis and on to Western Digital. And we'd see a ton of companies in the Bay Areas. We always finish up our trip at Hitachi in South San Francisco on the way to the airport overlooking the Bay. Crawford had the whole supply chain modeled, and the clients loved it, from heads of from the company heads and media to the drives themselves, all the way to PCs, which were the center of the market back then, and into the big iron EMC would sell, and even the systems companies like IBM, Sun, and Digital. It was a fun time in the industry and set the foundation for Crawford to branch into many new areas like mobile and cloud to become the superstar CEO that he is today. So pretty good there. Probably
Lots of memories there. Dave's a great
longest ones. I say give me a sentence or two. So anyway, so Dave, great guy in his own right. And another Dave Donatelli says, who's a CEO now of Riverbed. I've known Crawford Del Prete since he first entered the industry many decades ago. It has been great to see his rise to an advisor and independent purveyor of the truth to all the top CEOs and executives in tech. Crawford accomplishes this through a low-key, ego-free, just the facts approach that makes him trusted by all. How about that? Independent purveyor of the truth.
Hey, you know, there's nothing wrong with the truth, Randy.
Might be a new IDC tagline. So anyway,
very special. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That was what a great group of people.
Yeah, well earned for sure. So anyway, so you went to your undergrad at Michigan State.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And your first job out of college was actually in sales at John Harland?
My first job out of college was at sales at John Harland. John Harland is gone now. They got bought by their arch enemy, which was Deluxe. They were a check and financial printer. And so I would go around Manhattan, basically servicing Chase and Chemical Bank branches, making sure they had enough checking products. It was one of those jobs, really, really sweet company, sweet people. Actually, Harland, I think, as a software company, is still around. They spun out their software business. But it was one of those jobs you do after, you do it for about 10 months, but after about 10 minutes, you know that this isn't the job for you. And so I was lucky enough to they had awesome sales training. I took that sales training and joined a division of IDG, which, believe it or not, 36 years ago, I am still here. And ended up starting out as a salesperson, switched over to being an analyst, and then really that clicked with what I do.
Awesome. And then you kind of touch on it, but maybe just briefly go through your impressive career.
Yeah. So my career progression. So I started. So actually, before Harland, I had worked in financial services at a company called Payne Weber, which maybe people don't remember, but I was one of the corporate interns there. Had a great experience there working in commercial lending. Then ended up working at Harland for a short period of time, but really wanted to break into tech. And I took a job in sales, did it for about a year, and then met a guy you just quoted, Dave Vellante, switched over to a different division and joined IDC, and really started in a business, you know, Randy, quite well, the storage industry. And the thing about storage is when you learn storage and you learn IO, you really start to understand how, in those days, a computer operates. And what the role of an operating system is, what the role of firmware is, how basically you have to think about every function and how every function is working together. Dave, said it well. We developed a business. We kind of ground out a business. In my career, as someone who could run a business, but also be a thought leader, really matched IDC's business at that time. And so I started expanding. I founded our semiconductor program. I then expanded into understanding all of our systems research, which is where, you and I started spending more time at places like Sun Microsystems. And then I moved over and took over our applications research, and then our services research, and then our vertical research, and ended up running all of it. And so I served as our second chief research officer within this history of the company. I took that job in about the year 2000, and I did that job for about 15 years. And then I took over as chief operating officer for about a year, and then became president of the company now about almost over 6 years ago, but about 6.25 years ago, became president. And it's just been absolutely my honor to run this company. I joined, we were a small $30 million boutique. Today, we're the second largest research company on the planet, dedicated to technology, that is. And it's been an incredible journey to see IDC grow with this industry and be able to be relevant in so many different technology domains. But that's really just a quick summary of my progression at IDC.
Awesome. So how do you, I mean, there's just so much to know and you're always on top of everything. I mean, how do you?
Yeah. So Substack is really great to be a big avid reader of a number of Substacks. There's another product called The Information, which is a great site to spend your time on. And then honestly, Randy, it comes from things like this. It comes from conversations. But all that has to have a foundation of curiosity. You got to love this. You got to love and be curious about how technology is working. How is the world changing because of the influence of technology? And technology is pervades everything. I mean, you know, Randy, it's amazing. You know, if you covered automobiles, if you studied automobiles before Elon Musk got involved, the car didn't really change for like 150 years. It had tires, had a transmission. In the 1950s, it got automatic transmission. In the 1980s, it got a digital clock. But really, nothing changed in a car until we made it software enabled. Tech, on the other hand, I mean, look, I've seen tech reinvent itself 5 times since I started this industry, and I'm not talking about a faster chip or an LCD monitor. I'm talking about a foundational change to technology, whether it's the move from mainframe to client server, whether it's client server to mobile, whether it's the cloud emerging and people building applications on a whole new set of platforms, or whether it's AI. This thing has reinvented itself, and you gotta love it. You gotta love that transition. And if you don't love that transition, then you're just going to get lost in the jargon and it becomes alphabet soup. But that's really the key, is loving it.
Yeah, awesome. So great. And then I've done some work with IDC with your impressive team, but you've got the IDC Velocity product.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, Velocity is a great product. It's actually great for sellers. So at IDC, people know us for the market data that we develop, for the perspectives that we have in the marketplace. But what we also have done over the years is we have profiled a couple 100,000 of the largest IT buyers and what they have installed from a technology standpoint around the world. And what we're able to do with Velocity is help sellers identify what technology is being used by companies, what technology can be profiled within not only a specific account, but if you're having success in a specific account selling a technology solution, if you're a tech seller, with our AI, we can then predict, here are other companies with a similar profile. And we can start to help sellers profile where they're going to have successful deals going forward. And we think that data set, and we'll get into this later in the conversation, it's not only helpful as the Velocity product, it's helpful as a product that can be infused into other platforms, like into your Salesforce instance, or into your HighSpot instance, or into many other instances that are out there. So we're really excited about being able to help companies understand their ability to sell more effectively with the market intelligence we create every day.
That's great. Well, it sounds like it could be an interesting opportunity to partner with ZoomInfo, because you would identify the companies and then they could kind of help say, here's whoever the decision makers are for that offering at those companies.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly right. And so that idea of building a profile of what that account is spending, then you take somebody who's actually got those contacts and you got a really magical combination. And it's really, in this days of AI, it's about how can I fortify your decision making? How can I make you smarter? And that's what this data really does.
Wow, very cool for sure. And then for those who don't know, IDC basically just a massive wealth of knowledge. So if you're a seller trying to figure out, kind of who's who in the zoo in terms of what people think about your company, what they think about your competition, but all the different kind of domains, analysts, kind of everything like that. Most of the time I find that, marketing at companies have the relationship, and sales kind of, for whatever reason, doesn't really know and understand all the information they can actually get. So maybe talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. So, look, we cover hundreds of domains at IDC. We have, 1,100 analysts that are covering these domains in 48 countries around the world. And so being able to bring in a credible expert to do a number of things, right? Be someone to help you vet strategies. That's what we do, to your point, in the market intelligence team. That's what we do with strategy. That's what we do with competitive intelligence. But let me tell you, there's a lot of other stuff that we do at IDC. We are a leading provider of white papers. So, being able to have an independent, so we go out, we do independent surveys of technology domains. What are customer buying criteria? What do customers see as their biggest challenges? Where are customers focused for their next area of technology investment? Being able to write up those challenges and create independent white papers that can be used to generate leads. We can work with companies to syndicate that content across all kinds of different networks, whether whether it be ad networks or you name it, and then help companies drive leads. We have business value tools and ROI tools where we can bring in our data set to understand what are customers' biggest challenges around developing an ROI for a technology, and then we can develop ROI calculators, ROI tools that, again, can be used to aid in selling motions. And the magical thing about IDC is we do this across a few hundred domains. It's not like we're just in the cloud, or we're just in AI, or we're just in business analytics. We do it across all these domains. And so a lot of different areas we can focus on. That's
great. We'll have to go circle with your team and see how they're doing with Donatelli to Riverbed, because it sounds like they're doing well, but
we talk to Dave all the time.
Can definitely help for sure. So anyway, title topic, IT trends, where the market's headed, what every seller should know. And it looks like from John, we have a good kickoff question here. That's looks pretty advanced. Would love your perspective in meeting with 550 plus enterprise customers, 24-25. We've seen the biggest challenges around AI being cost and ROI, scale challenges, Microsoft Copilot's too expensive, 2, data sovereignty and control, high priority, 3, risk. So want to
So John is right. I mean, these are significant challenges that we see. So let me address number one. Look, I mean, the gravitation. So when this whole journey started, right, we had OpenAI, and Copilot made a massive investment, and Copilot came out. But now we've got many different AI engines for what I'll call horizontal business functions that are coming out. And guess what? The gravitational forces of that are going to happen over time. We're going to see these things become less and less expensive as cloud. That looks like Claude, which is Anthropic. You've got Google with Gemini, and you've got Microsoft with Copilot, and you're going to see that the natural competition is going to drop these prices. The other thing that you're going to see is that people are going to start depending on this technology in ways that they haven't. I mean, I will say to all you sellers, if you're not using Copilot, and by the way, I'll say this a few times, I'm sure today, there's this invisible in plain sight thing that's happening now, where all of a sudden, you're using Microsoft Office and the little Copilot thing shows up and says, do you want to rewrite this paragraph? Or how do you want to, and that is going to happen across applications, and people are going to get better at their jobs as they do this. So that's going to drive the value associated with that incremental cost that people are paying. Combine that with the fact that the prices are going to come down over time, and we're going to see more and more adoption of this technology. So I think the cost thing will get addressed, but for sure, John, it is an issue right now. I mean, $20 per user per month, it's real money that people are having to pay when you start thinking about 500, 600, 1,000 seats in an organization.
Yeah, and it's driving massive growth on the server and storage side of things with a bunch of the companies we just mentioned, HP, Dell, and others.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we'll talk about that in a second, but it's driving massive growth, right? I mean, this year alone, right, as we build out this infrastructure layer, last year, 23 to 24, we saw 55% growth in dollars in infrastructure. I mean, crazy. I mean, Randy, you and I have been in this industry probably a combined 70 years, and we've never seen that kind of growth. Now, you take service providers out of it, you still had 20% growth in enterprises that were upgrading their infrastructure for AI. So this is real, and it's going to continue to happen as companies realize, if I'm not competitive with this technology, my competitors will be. So the investment is going to happen, and then we're going to start to see investments in platforms, and in platforms that will allow people to be able to do things like build agents and then connect agents to different clouds and different data sets, which kind of gets to your second point that you have here around data sovereignty and control of the quality. Two different issues there. Customers are concerned about their data, and they're concerned about data sovereignty. They're concerned about about data leakage, and I think that the model builders get this. But at the same time, being in a world of agents where you're starting to pick data sets from different databases and then combine those to create different kinds of answers, that means you better have a really effective management layer and a really effective orchestration layer. And what you're going to see, if you want my prediction, is you're going to see a feeding frenzy at that layer over the course of the next 12 months. You're going to see a ton of innovation in that space, and you're going to see a lot of M&A in that space to deal exactly with this data sovereignty problem. The risk, which is associated with hallucinations and how people are solving these challenges, with the best companies that I'm seeing are the ones who are investing in better AI prompt training and better AI usability training. So, for example, if you use a tool like Perplexity, you can use different LLMs. You can start to see, because it's really weird. I don't know if this is the right word, but what our guys are seeing is that these models, they get tired. Right? You start using these models, they start giving you the same answers. And so you have to move to different models to be able to make sure that you're zeroing in on the right questions. You also have to be really good at your prompts and being able how do you write a strong prompt. So, for example, I was talking with one of our analysts actually just 2 days ago, and he had a great one for me. He was like, yeah, when you ask a question, here's a great prompt. Ask your question and then say, be verbose, but not repetitive. And, you say things like that, and then you don't get the word salad. You don't get like this sort of, the thing just goes on and on and on and on, but you get like a meaningful answer where it's eliminated a lot of that, extra words and extra things coming in. So these are the things. It's prompt training, understanding how to use this stuff. That's going to eliminate more of the risk than anything else, and also using different engines over time.
Yeah, I mean, I had an interesting situation a couple of weeks ago. I was trying to give somebody, I'll call it performance feedback. In my old school way is kind of more direct, which is how we grew up. But this day and age, you've got to be touchy-feely and soft because you don't want to offend anybody, God forbid, blah, 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 right? So it is what it is. So for somebody like me, I kind of wrote what I would have written 20 years ago. Yep. And then I said, okay, hey, please make this softer. And then you could say, okay. And then this is Peter Bell said, use Perplexity, right? So that for that you just mentioned. But you say make it soft here. Okay, well, highlight here, tweak this. And it's amazing. What
it's amazing. It's just amazing how when you can give it that kind of coaching,
right.
Yeah, how valuable. And this is a really important point, Randy, because what I'm seeing this separation. I'm seeing this group of people that are sort of like, yeah, I use Copilot. It didn't float my boat, whatever. And then I'm seeing people that are leaning in. And the people that are leaning in are getting massive scale and they're getting massive productivity benefits. And this is just on a individual basis. For companies, it's the same thing. And let me just tell you, to the people that are online right now, don't be one of those people that try it once and walk away. Be a learner. Lean into this. Your career depends on it. Because if you don't learn how to use this stuff, you're really setting yourself up for failure going forward. It is that fundamental.
Yeah, it's amazing. Then other, personal things. I'll try not to talk about my family, but like, if you want to do something with your kids or other family members, it's just amazing how you could tweak. And then, other uses that I've done, which is, okay, hey, help me identify target companies, give me 50 target companies and the decision makers. And what would I say? And this is just a, basic baseline, right? On the Perplexity, not even what, a kind of Zoom info and these others can do. So just so amazing there. And then I don't know if you touched on the modernization of the apps as well.
Yeah. So what you're going to see. So let's just talk about kind of how. So I talked a little bit about the infrastructure layer. And by the way, I didn't say this, but the infrastructure layer is not like we saw 50% growth, 55% growth last year. We expect to see 20% growth this year in the infrastructure layer. This journey is going to continue going forward. So then we're going to start to build these AI AI platforms. These AI platforms are then going to be develop. That's where we're going to develop a lot of the agents. And the agents are going to be able to go into these different data sets, and they're going to need the orchestration that I talked about. And then above that, we're going to get to this kind of invisible in plain sight, I'll say it again, kind of world where your applications, and this is already happening, are starting to get smarter. And all of a sudden, your agents are kind of cluing in to what you're trying to do, and they're giving you they're giving you smarter answers that they can predict what you want going forward. I think this is going to change the application software business forever. I think that there's a possibility we could see a real day of reckoning in the application software business because you start to say to yourself, okay, I've got a data store for all my employee data I'm making this up, created by an HCM vendor like Workday. I've got a data store that was created by, a CRM vendor. And then I got a data store that's my ERP. And then now all of a sudden, if you're getting answers out of all those areas, at some point, do you start to say, hey, look, can I just use an LLM to basically populate some of my data stores and not necessarily use the presentation layer that's being given to me by some of those application vendors? Now, I think it's a little far-fetched, and that's not going to happen anytime soon that you would disintermediate one of those vendors. But I do think it's going to be a ton harder for the next application vendor to become really used in the enterprise in a massive way, as opposed to these established platforms that we have bringing in agents and being able to go out to your structured and your unstructured data and get answers. And that's really, I think, where we're going to see a real explosion in small companies that are in the ecosystems of each of these platform vendors, as well as we're going to see a significant amount of activity around being able to get answers with agents out of companies' unstructured data, which we've never been able to really, Randy, you and I have talked about it forever, but we haven't really seen that happen in the marketplace. Now I think we're going to be able to automatically go into your data store and then bring in all the other stuff that about these about this situation with this account or this situation with this employee, and you're going to be able to get an unbelievably rich answer. And I think that's going to sort of propel and transform the applications business over the next few years.
Awesome. That's great. And for those watching, listening along, John, thanks for your questions. So if any others want to jump in with any questions or comments, please feel free. What about, you also recently posted about a use case around RFPs leveraging AI?
Yeah. So we are, so we believe at IDC that there is an opportunity to really assist customers in new ways with AI. So one of the products that we've been developing over the last couple of years is a product called IDC Tech Match, which we brought out, and it's debuted. I encourage anybody to go to the site and check it out. But what it allows an IT buyer to do, and a lot of the sellers on this call know us as a company that creates research for the IT supplier community. But we also have a very, very large practice around assisting IT buyers in their journey. And think about their journey as a journey of exploration. So I'm exploring and understanding new technologies. I have to engage, which is like, I got to select a technology, and then I got to measure. We think of it like as a wheel, and measure is like ROI and benchmarking, and did I pay too much? Well, what we want to do is assist customers in that journey. And so we've developed a platform using an LLM where we've loaded up a significant amount of IDC research, and mostly what we call our marketscapes, which is a 2x2 matrix that allows you to see the leaders and the laggards. And, there's a number of them. IDC has the MarketScape, Gartner has the Magic Quadrant, Forrester has the Wave. We've loaded up all this stuff into an LLM. And now IT buyers can go to this tool and they can put in their criteria for 30 different technology areas. So, let's talk about sales automation or CRM. And they can say, these are the criteria that are most important to me. And then then automatically the LLM will spit back and say, okay, based on your criteria, here are a set of companies you should explore. That's where the magic really happens. Then you've got a chatbot where you can start asking questions about, how does IDC perceive this company in CRM? How does IDC perceive that company in CRM? Does this CRM work in this region? Does this CRM support this language? Does this CRM support this sales extension? And it'll give you real-time answers. And we've had people who bought this platform say to us, I learned a ton about these products, that I actually put new companies on my short list that I didn't have before until I started using this tool. So now it gets to the RFP part. So now you've learned about the companies. What we can help you do is generate a short list and generate an RFP. And what our product market fit research said was, one of the things companies hate is collaborating on an RFP. They struggle with it. So what I can do is, if Randy and I are in the same, and Tucker and I are in the same company, I can say, okay, guys, I put my criteria in, you put your criteria in, and we're all going to get that access to that. And then the three of us will collaborate on the criteria for the RFP. Then from there, we can generate an RFP. And that RFP is something that we can then download and then send off to the vendors. And our vision long-term is we'd like to explore the idea of actually sending that RFP to vendors directly. But we're really excited about the tool. Great interest. I welcome anybody to come check it out. If anybody's interested in getting a demo, I'm happy to do that. But we are super pumped about it, and it's an example of where we're using AI to aid the customer's journey. Whereas in the old days, it was like, I got to call up Crawford. I want to ask him, if I buy this Symmetrics, is it going to fall over? And now we can start to do it in an automated way.
Wow, really exciting. So that's for the customer side, leveraging. Right. RFP. Do you do anything the other side to say, if I'm a seller, is there anything you can do to help me there on the RFP?
So that's coming, right? So as a seller, right? So we kind of go back to velocity, right? So our vision for velocity long term is to be able to not only just talk about those 300,000 companies that I mentioned earlier, but the richness of IDC's entire data set. So what I ultimately want to do is be able to say to us, and this is going to come, I think, relatively quickly. I want you to be able to, within your CRM instance, be able to query IDC about, I'm making this up, what are Salesforce's strengths in this vertical market? What's ZoomInfo's strengths in this market? And then based on our research, we can then prepare a seller and give a seller information. What do buyers struggle with around purchasing Salesforce automation or purchasing CRM. And our most, we do monthly surveys, Randy. So this thing will be able to say, okay, here's here's the March survey results of what companies in North America are struggling with for this criteria. We'll be able to deliver that, and then you'll be able to be ready for your sales call in a new way. That's our vision long term.
Right. And it'd be really good if you could say, if I'm a rep and I've got whatever 100 companies that kind of leverage AI to then go ahead and spit out kind of unsolicited proposals as well.
Well, yeah, eventually, yeah, you can start to get, so what I'd like to, so now let's talk about these two products. So Velocity is a product to help sellers straight up. But what I'm doing on the other side, which is Tech Matchers, I'm going to have thousands of IT buyers coming to IDC generating RFPs. What I'd like to be able to do is make it really easy for them to send those RFPs directly to vendors, which is now I'm doing really what the promise of this company was from day one, which is bringing buyers and sellers together.
Very cool. Anyway, great. All right, let me anything else that you want to touch on in terms of how sellers should leverage AI briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about a lot of them, but the one that I'll just drill down a little bit is, Randy, you posted some great stuff on LinkedIn about, I think you titled it, "I may be old school, but being prepared for a meeting, being
the stupid stuff that
it's all the kindergarten stuff. You
performer
right?
20 years ago would do, and these days it's like the average performance, like pulling teeth.
I totally agree, right? And so I say to myself, if you're a seller and you're not getting prepared for meetings you got 100x multiplier, 100 Randys, 100 whoever's that can be prepared and understand what is your seller criteria, understand what is most important to your seller. Get better at using these tools, get better at using these prompts. There's just no excuse for it, and you're going to get creamed if you're not doing it. And so I would just say, your customer doesn't need to know that, right? But you can be 100x better at what you're doing if you're using these tools. And John's question earlier was fair, right? Which is, these are expensive tools. I would say something different, which is, even if your company won't pay for it, spend the money. Spend the money for these tools, because you will be a better seller and you'll pay for it many, 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 many times over.
Absolutely. Well said. So you've had a catbird seat to see companies that have crushed it and those that have not.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of attributes, but if you think of kind of maybe two attributes of the companies that crush it, any things that come to mind?
Yeah. So it really comes down to the old Tony Ulwick stuff from that company strategy, which is the jobs to be done. I mean, you got to understand why customers are hiring your product for a specific need that they're focused on. I see so many sellers that are out there, they're pushing boxes, they're pushing services. They just assume that the customer understands sort of what the value proposition of the product is. And it's not about a tighter value proposition. It's about does your product, your customer is hiring products to meet specific jobs every single day. And how can your product be a better fit for that job? Whether it's closing more deals, whether it's delighting their customers more effectively, whatever that job is, and you've got to really nail that job over and over and over. And it's those companies that just crush it in a lot of different ways. So I see that. I see this so often where companies they're just pushing products and they're not sitting in their customers' shoes. And I will say that, a little bit self-serving here, but the companies that use our services most effectively are those companies that come in and really understand, how is it that I can work with IDC to help understand those customer problems in differentiated ways, and then translate that into a better product market fit for what I'm doing every single day. And I don't see enough tech companies doing. So the smart ones do it, but I think there are so many tech companies that don't spend enough time doing that.
Absolutely. So certainly, being a fantastic leader at IDC. Developing your team and kind of assessing must be a big deal to your continued growth and success.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a company where the asset goes home every night, right? It's a service-based business, so you got to be hiring people that are super passionate about this area. We tend to hire people from a number of different areas, and we tend to grow them. But obviously, we have a lot of people with technical backgrounds and very strong technical backgrounds, but they got to be able to communicate. They've got to be able to really understand how to tell the story of tech, because that's really what's super important is connecting it to things that people can understand, which is what sellers need to do every single day, which is engage those customers in real problems that they're having every day. And so from a leadership standpoint, at IDC, we're constantly looking for those people that are really passionate about understanding how tech is changing the world, and then how it all kind of, comes together to transform a specific industry or transform a specific function within an organization. And so, I spend a tremendous amount of time on that leadership around the world. I spend a tremendous amount of time mentoring all of our people, right? It's not just, one of the things that's tough at IDC is being a seller at IDC. Being a seller at IDC, you got to bring in these really smart people, but you got to figure out and figure out how to make those introductions, how to be able to demonstrate the product, how to be able to not be an analyst, but also demonstrate the value of analysts without the analysts always being there. And that's a real art. And I suspect in some of the people that you have that are selling services, there's a similar challenge there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and if you think about the skill sets of your team, to try and figure out kind of where the puck's going, and how do you start to kind of assess and train based on those attributes that they may not realize that they need to have?
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? So we spend a tremendous amount of time training the entire organization exactly on where the industry is going, and then training them into how to translate that into customer value. It all starts with being relevant, right? It all starts with, we have to cover the areas that are most relevant to the industry, which is why I spend so much of my time out here in the field trying to figure out, okay, at IDC, it's a challenge, right? I don't want to be training people on stuff that's too early. I made that mistake in business analytics. I don't want to be training, and I can't be too late or nobody cares. I'm sweeping up the confetti on the floor of the party that was already flown. So we got to be exactly right on time for these technologies. And then once we see a technology trend that's happening, we got to train up the sales force. We've got to train up the rev ops people so they and the sales ops people so they understand how to prospect. We got to train up the client services people so they can help customers they can listen and interpret these problems, and then be able to turn those into opportunities. And I got to tell you, this is where we're spending a lot of time experimenting with AI and using AI, because this is where we can start to uncover some of the things that customers are asking about and say, okay, now with all the questions that we're hearing, with all the comments that we're hearing, is it time for us to spin up a new domain and go after? And then, of course, train the salespeople. Educate the salespeople, educate the client success people, make sure that the sales ops people are supporting, and that it all has to be integrated in terms of how we go after each of these new markets. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels, and we're either way too early or we're way too late. And it's definitely something you develop a nose for. But using AI, super valuable. Things that I think about that we used to do in this company, things like first pass translations. That stuff now is all stuff we can do with AI. Now, again, you still have to have a human edit it, but really valuable and been an amazing time saver for us.
Wow, awesome. So time flies here. A couple other questions I want to get into if we can. Any one or two mentors that you've had over the years you want to give shout outs to and specific advice?
Yeah, absolutely. My predecessor, a guy named Kirk Campbell, was just an amazing mentor to me. He was the president and CEO of IDC for about 25 years. And just, he and I were unbelievable partners, a wonderful mentor. You mentioned Dave Vellante. Dave Vellante gave me my start in this industry. Wonderful mentor. A shout out to him. He was always, and he, to this day, we stay in touch. Just a great guy, and a guy who has an amazing aperture for the overall industry. There was a woman, Alexa McClowan, who spent a lot of time at Forrester. She was also at Gartner. She was also a mentor of mine. Really smart lady. She was an ex-Goldman Sachs equity analyst and taught me something that I to this day. And Dave touched on it. I was a 20-something-year-old kid being brought into CEO meetings, and having CEOs ask me questions straight away. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And look in those days, I look back. As a 25-year-old, I'm sitting in meetings across the desk from Scott McNeely. I'm sitting in meetings across the desk from Dick Egan. I'm sitting in meetings across the desk from Finus Connor. And these guys became friends over the years. And it was really an unbelievable set of access and an unbelievable set of skills that I developed very, very early in my career on how to ask questions, how to be constructive, how to be constructive but critical. That is a skill I will take to my grave, and something that I'm incredibly grateful to these mentors for.
Absolutely. Scott, actually, I keep in touch with Scott. He has a ranch right outside of Vegas.
Oh, does he? Yeah. It's fascinating. I'll tell you, it's really, he's an amazing guy. And I look back to the way he thought about technology. I mean, my God, he was making the chips. He was making the operating system. He was making the middleware. He was making the applications. Those days we don't necessarily do that anymore. What he did at Sun was a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. What about any one or two sales leaders that have impressed you over the years?
Oh, absolutely. There are a number of them. I would say, the sales leader that I met early in my career, and we stayed friends up until his death, was Mark Hurd. Mark was an unbelievable seller. He obviously became, a world-class CEO. I learned so much from Mark, and we had a very close relationship in terms of being able to talk about the industry and seeing his passion, seeing his ability to sell, really unlike any other. I learned so much from him, and it's a very, very sad story, but wow, what a passion! What an unbelievable ability to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what about saying, you can't use him, but CEO leaders, you've already mentioned a bunch. But.
Yeah. So I won't I won't use Mark. A number of CEO leaders over the years that I've spent a fair amount of time with. I would say the most resilient and the one who's is just unreal to me is Michael Dell. Michael. I got the opportunity to meet Michael very early in my career. We've stayed in touch, and I've watched him, kind of like his book, his autobiography, Play Nice but Win. That's that's kind of Michael. I mean, there you got your copy back there.
Yeah.
I have never seen an executive capitalize on industry transitions in a way. There you go. Play nice but win. Never seen a man capitalize on industry transitions as effectively as Michael Dell. And let me just click down to that. That guy, people have bet against him and lost so many times. So, he starts with a phone center, right? And the internet comes out and everybody says they're dead. He'll be disrupted. It turns out it was a sustaining innovation, right? He had a phone center. The internet gave him scale. Then you say to yourself, okay, what's the most valuable asset at Dell? The most valuable asset at Dell is not the PCs. It's not the servers. It's his understanding in those days of the small, medium buyer. He knew he had checked their credit. He had extended them credit. He knew exactly what was installed, and he had an ability to continue to sell into that base. And it was only natural that he would continue to go up market. And now, he took advantage of the cloud. He built out a great server business. He acquired EMC. He's now effectively integrated a fantastic storage business. Now, what's he doing? He's looking at AI, and he's not only looking at ways to obviously bring out, Blackwell NVIDIA based servers, but he's looking at it internally and saying, how can I scale this business in a way that none of my competitors are doing? And how can I expand EBIT margins in a way that's going to allow me to delight my customers, but not add cost to the business? And he's going to do it. And so I've never seen somebody reinvent themselves and their company so on point. Unbelievable leader, and super, super impressed with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And doing a lot on the sales transformation side.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
For sure there. So, all right, been fantastic. So last question I'd like to ask folks if there's any PG Randy story to share. And if not, anything come to mind? I forgot to tell you in the prep session. So.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So a PG Randy story for everybody. Or are you asking for the team? Are you asking for the group?
Yeah. No, for you. Yeah.
No, for me. Okay, thanks. Yeah, you broke up for a second there. Yeah, I mean, Randy, you are amazing to me. And so what I find so amazing is I have never seen someone who is more effective. And so the story I'd like to share is the most recent story. You and I had dinner recently, and it was like it was. We sat down and we immediately connected across 40 years of people that we know in this industry. And then as we sat at the place we were eating, it was like old home week. People kept coming up to the table. It was like, you hadn't seen this one in a long time. I hadn't seen this one in a long time. And there's this collection of people that everybody knows that you are at the center of that solar system in a way that I've never seen. And it's just, it's obviously PG, but it's amazing. And your ability to connect people and your ability to span multiple groups of people and bring them together to share experiences. It's no wonder you're so incredibly successful with sales community, but also so incredibly successful in mediums like this. It's just a pleasure to know you. I'm super, super grateful. And just that little vignette of spending time with you was just so emblematic of how you operate in this industry.
Thank you. Well, I'd say same back to you. So anyway, thank you so much. So thank you so much, Crawford. You've been amazing. So many awesome insights. Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. Zoom Info, thanks for sponsoring. For those aren't members of Sales Community, feel free to join. And everybody have a great